The lights hit the rearview mirror before the siren did, red and blue washing across Daniel's hands on the wheel, and for one stupid second he almost laughed. Nice one, Marcus, his brother in uniform, pulling him over on the same stretch of Route 9 they used to race bikes down as kids. He slowed, pulled onto the shoulder, already composing the joke he'd make when the window came down. The window came down. Marcus wasn't smiling. License and registration. Daniel searched his brother's face for the crack in it. The wink, the gotcha, and didn't find one. Marcus's eyes were doing something Daniel had never seen them do before. Procedural. Empty. Like Daniel was a stranger's taillight and nothing more. Marcus, what is this? License and registration, sir. Sir. The word landed wrong. A stone dropped into still water. Daniel handed the documents through the window, with fingers that had gone numb for no reason he could name yet. Somewhere behind his ribs, an old argument was still smoldering. 3 weeks old now. About their mother's care. About the house. About who got to decide what happened to a life neither of them wanted to admit was ending. Marcus had said things that night. Daniel had said worse. Neither of them had called since. He hadn't thought a phone call was something you could skip and then arrive at. This. Step out of the vehicle. Are you serious right now? Step out of the vehicle. Daniel stepped out. The night air was cooler than he expected, and it did nothing to slow the sound of his own pulse in his ears. Marcus's hand found his shoulder, turned him, and the cuffs closed around his wrists with a click that felt less like metal and more like a door shutting somewhere permanent. I have reason to believe there's contraband in this vehicle. There's nothing in my... Marcus was already leaning into the car. Daniel watched from the roadside, cuffed, breath fogging in the glare of the light bar, and some part of his mind that was still working clearly enough to notice things noticed. His brother's hand disappearing under the driver's seat for longer than searching should take. A motion too smooth. Too rehearsed. Marcus straightened up, holding a small, clear bag. Found this under your seat. Daniel didn't say anything right away. He wasn't sure his voice would come out as anything other than a sound, and he didn't want to give Marcus that. So he stood there, wrists bound, watching his brother hold up evidence that hadn't existed 20 minutes ago, and he let the silence stretch until it became its own kind of statement. That's not mine. That's what they all say. They as if Daniel were a stranger. As if 7 years of sharing a bedroom, of Marcus crying at their father's funeral, with his face pressed into Daniel's shoulder, had never happened. Daniel felt something in his chest go quiet and cold, the particular stillness of a person doing math he doesn't want to be doing. Years. That's what this was. Possession with intent, on a police officer's word, and whose word would a courtroom believe? The officers, or the brothers? He thought about the argument. He thought about how small it had felt at the time, and how large it apparently still was to Marcus. Large enough to reach for something like this. He didn't say any of it out loud. There didn't seem to be a version of saying it that wouldn't make things worse. Then he remembered the dashcam. He'd installed it 8 months ago, after a fender bender dispute with his insurance company that had cost him $400 he didn't have, and 3 weeks of arguing with an adjuster who didn't believe him. Cheap camera, magnetic mount, motion activated. He'd forgotten it was even running. He didn't say anything about it now either. Some instinct told him silence was worth more than a plea. A second-hand cruiser pulled up behind Marcus's, light sweeping the guardrail. A woman got out, mid-40s, sergeant stripes, radio crackling at her shoulder. Backup. Called in automatically for any stop involving a search. Standard protocol. Nothing dramatic about her arrival at all, which was somehow what made it feel enormous. What do we have? Suspected possession. Bag recovered from under the driver's seat. The sergeant's eyes moved to Daniel, then to the car, then almost as an afterthought, to the small black rectangle mounted on the windshield, its lens still faintly blinking red. That running? Aye. Marcus's voice caught for just a fraction of a second. So brief that if Daniel hadn't been watching for exactly this, he might have missed it. I don't know. Pull it. Let's see the timestamp against the report. Daniel watched his brother's hands as the sergeant worked the camera loose from its mount. They weren't steady anymore. The performance of procedure had a limit, and Daniel realized, standing there in the cold with his wrists still bound, that he was witnessing the exact moment his brother arrived at it. The footage took 4 minutes to review. Nobody spoke during those 4 minutes. Daniel watched the sergeant's face instead of the screen. Watched it shift from neutral to something harder, something that flattened out into a kind of professional stillness. Daniel recognized now as the mirror image of what Marcus had been performing on him minutes earlier, except this time it was real. Uncuff him. The cuffs came off. Marcus didn't do it. The sergeant did. Step over here, Officer Reyes. Marcus went. He didn't look back at Daniel not once, and Daniel found that he didn't need him to. There was nothing left to say that 4 minutes of silent footage hadn't already said better than either of them could. Daniel drove home alone. An hour later, the charge is gone, a case number, and a claims contact card in his jacket pocket, where the arrest report should have been. He didn't feel triumphant. He'd expected to, somewhere in the drive, some flare of vindication. And it never came. What came instead was quieter and heavier. The understanding that his brother had looked at him, cuffed on the shoulder of Route 9, and decided that ruining him was worth it. The investigation would take weeks. Reassignment may be worse. Daniel didn't know yet, and didn't especially want to know tonight. He pulled into his driveway, cut the engine, and sat there for a long time in the dark before he had the will to go inside. The dashcam, unremarkable, cheap, bought for entirely different reasons, sitting on the passenger seat like something he now owed his life to, and never wanted to look at again.